Good afternoon, everybody. This is the February 11th, 2025 meeting of the Chatham Finance Committee. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone is recording this meeting, please notify the chairperson. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29, 2023 signing of the Acts of 2023, extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20, until March 31st, 2025. This meeting of the Chatham Finance Committee is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress might do so by calling the phone number area code 508-945-4410. Conference ID is 791-692-82#. Or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, Xfinity Channel 1072, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible.
Thank you, Andy. I appreciate that.
Turning it over to our committee chairperson, Stephen Daniel.
Thank you, Andy. All right, roll call. Tommy Doan.
Here.
Barbara Madison.
Here.
John Papalardo.
Here.
Joanne Sprague.
Here.
Andy Young has been
Here.
confirmed here. Kristen Andres.
Here.
Tracy Shields.
Here.
Eric Whiteley.
Here.
And the chair is here. We're going to continue our work on the proposed FY26 budget today with the operating capital budget presentation, general government. We're going to have a review of a proposed OPEB warrant article, and then we'll continue our conversation about our report to the select board thereafter. So, without further ado, Carrie, over to you, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So today we'll be going over general government and other undesignated budgets. The general government is presented at $3,546,470 for FY 2026, with an increase of $126,695 over the current fiscal year budget. General government makes up 6% of the operating budget. We'll also be going over debt service, which makes up 14%, undistributed insurance and reserve fund, which makes up 2%, and employee benefits, which is made up of 11% of the budget. So the general government, 6% of the operating budget, consists of 10 departments, 4 other, and 2 committees: Select Board, Town Manager, Human Resources, Accounting, Assessing, Treasurer Collector, IT, Town Clerk, Elections, and the Sticker Office. We also have the Town Moderator, Legal, Audit, Parking Clerk, Summer Residence Advisory Committee, and the Finance Committee. So just an overview. Again, the budget for the general government is $3.5 million. Personal services increased $122,000, and operating expenses only increased for $4,650. On the screen, you'll see the increases for personnel increases by department. The town manager's department increased $16,460. Human resources, $8,076. Accounting, $83,692. Assessing was $11,616. Treasurer collector, $10,475. IT, $19,222. Town clerk, $6,619. Elections went down $8,607, and the sticker office went down $25,508. And I'll get I'll go through a couple of those in the minute. The ones that have the asterisks on it, I'll go over those more in detail. All the others are basically due to contractual increases, step increases, and longevity increases. So these are the operational increases by department. The expenses, select board increases $1,050, town manager $5,800, human resources $2,400, accounting $1,300, assessing $1,450, IT $7,750, elections went down $28,500, and the sticker office increased their expenses by $13,500 with a total of $4,750. So these are the departments that are level funded for FY 2026. We have the town moderator at $1,250, finance committee at $2,600, legal at $235,000, audit at $65,000, summer residence advisory committee at $2,000, and parking clerk at $8,500. The treasurer collector and the town clerk had no increases to their expense lines, just their salaries.
Carrie? Mm-hmm. Do you have any color on the legal expenses and whether they've diminished over the last few years as some of the more contentious issues have receded, at least for the time being?
What we've seen for legal expenses?
Yeah, I mean, do we routinely spend $235, or is it some percentage of that? Do we exceed that line item, or just kind of curious for context?
I would have to go back and look and see what we expended in that line for FY 2024, but I can.
All right, I'll put it on the list and I'll send you a note.
Okay, all right,
All right, thank you.
that's fine.
Sorry, Joanne, please.
Who is our legal counsel, please? What office?
We have Jay Tallerman as our, they're our town council. We have, who do we have for legal? Is it,
I guess I mean the town council.
town council is Tallerman, Jay Tallerman.
And they have been,
We've had them now
Before.
since June.
but they've been here before, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
So that's
thank-
our town council.
Yeah.
And then legal, we have, is it,
Mr. Chair, Labor Council is Clifford and Kenny, and we've had them for a number of years.
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. And I'll look up the expenses for you and get that to you. So this is, the select board budget is at $24,050 for the year. Their salary's at $21,000 and their expenses are at $3,050. They had an increase in their operating expenses for $1,050. So an increase in advertising for $1,000 and office supplies for $50. The advertising line has gone over for the past couple of years, so that's why we've increased that budget. The town manager's budget is at $643,200 for FY 2026. Salaries are at $421,950, and expenses are at $221,250. The operating expenses for FY 2026 are increasing $5,800. So we have $250 for advertising, an increase. Printing, we reduced by $2,000, and it's offset with the postage of $2,000. Office supplies has increased $5,000, and meetings, dues, and travel has increased $550. Most of these increases you'll see just due to expenses exceeding the line items. So like the office supplies have been exceeding the budget line in FY '23 and '24, so that's why you see that. And same with meetings, dues, and travel.
So Carrie, when line items exceed budgeted, I know other than snow removal, how do you sort of cover that?
So,
Do you move it around within the department?
correct. Within the like in general government, you can move it around in there. Otherwise, if I was to move money from like DPW to general, I would have to physically get a transfer for that.
Okay,
Yep,
okay, but you can swap between department lines?
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So the HR budget is at $234,556 for FY 2026. Salaries are at $204,206. Expenses are at $30,350. There's an operating expense increase of $2,400. So there is, last year, we started the employee engagement, and they have had multiple, and this is due to like seeing that the employees wanted some type of employee engagement going on. We've had multiple different employee engagements this year. Let me read them off to you. So we have the cookout for the annual employee cookout with the Chatham Anglers game. We have the ice cream social. They started a chili cook-off and a movie night. And these are just planned events by the town of Chatham for employees. Again, it was formed back this current fiscal year. It started this current fiscal year, right? So we've seen the expenses actually exceed the line item, so we've increased it $2,250. Contracted services, $150. Advertising is offset with the increase of the office supplies. So it's kind of a net amount of $2,400 for that line. So the accounting department budget is at $403,024 for FY 2026, and the increase in the salaries is by $83,692. The expenses increased by $1,300. The expenses for the operating side are for continuing education and meetings, dues, and travel, and that's due to the increase that we're seeing in education and for a new position that will be starting up soon in the accounting department. So they have the opportunity to take continuing education and professional growth as well. And I will go over the new position in a second. That's my next slide. So the finance administrative position is budgeted for FY 2026 for $76,459. And it's budgeted as a step 3 because we weren't sure what they would come in at step in 2025. So this is a step 3. So it's a little bit probably more than what we anticipate, but it's offset by the Conservation Department assistant of $57,000 and the sticker office lead position of $25,956. There's actually a savings of $6,499. So this position is a shared position between the sticker office and the finance office. We found a need for more of a manager type position for the sticker office that needed to kind of like take control and be more of a supervisor for the part-time staff that is there and to actually find efficiencies and ways that we can improve in the sticker office and be there more of a full-time kind of year-round type of position. So they will be working with the sticker office year-round. However, we know that the sticker office is only open here for 6 months out of the year. The other part of the year, they're going to be working at the town hall, and if there's stickers that need to be sold, they can sell them and take care of that over at the treasurer collector's office. But they're going to be working with me on the budget, looking and working on like analysis and getting reports and kind of like diving more into the budget and using ClearGov to a better extent than what we're using it now. So ClearGov has like a personnel part to it. We haven't been able to utilize that yet. So things that we're not being able to get to, this position will be able to do during the budget season. So I'm kind of like, it's granted it's only going to be part of the year, but it will be very exciting. And because the Conservation Department assistant has been unfilled for a couple of years, they didn't find a need for it. So this is how we came up with this. Does anybody have any questions? I know it was kind of presented to you a little bit briefly with when Greg was going over the Natural Resources Department, but.
So Carrie, what are you hoping to achieve with the new position, reporting in part to you or the finance department?
So on my side,
Yeah.
I'm looking for somebody to help me with reporting, gather information from our financial system, kind of like dive deep more into our budget, more so than I can right now,
In search of what?
in ways to like
prospectively.
improve.
Yeah. Okay. And ClearGov provides the leverage to be able to do that as a platform?
Yeah, so ClearGov also has new stuff that they're coming out with as well. So I know that Craig is here. He works with me mostly with ClearGov a lot. So it will also alleviate his time because he's sitting there helping me with the budget a lot with setting up ClearGov and on the operating side and the capital side. This person will kind of alleviate his time that he's taking to help me right now, so.
Yeah, so ClearGov, I was just on a meeting yesterday with ClearGov, and one of the weaknesses they have is they don't directly integrate with the financial management system. So we have to do an export of data once a week, twice a week, twice a month, whatever it might be. They're actually building a bridge over to financial management systems so we can actually get real-time information on the ClearGov site. So when you actually go into the transparency site on ClearGov, you'll actually see expenditures detail at this point in time. We're looking at putting actually line item detail in some of the accounts if we wish. One of our projects is capital projects. We'd like to assign an account number to a project, whatever it might be, the Center for Active Living Rebuild. We'll put a line item and we'll be able to see as funds are expended out of that account, there'll be a real-time cross-reference there. So you'll be able to go in and see project, maybe we break it down into phases, for example, 1 through 5. Phase 1 will be design and initial construction, demolition. You'll see a funding amount coming out of the account directly. So you'll say, okay, whatever the number is, it's pie in the sky, $100 million. They're going to take $5 million, that's going to come out of it right away for the design, the review, the initial process. So you'll be able to see that in real time. And that's one of the really good tools, I think, that we're going to also be able to utilize with this new position is they'll be able to just make sure that the numbers look good and then provide financial statements. ClearGov is moving towards, they don't want to be a financial management system, but they want to be as a portal so that towns can use that more effectively. So we can run our financial statements, staff can go in, click the financial statement, and they'll see at any point in time how much they got in their budget.
Joanne, please.
Barbara has her hand up.
Oh, let's start with Joanne.
Who is ClearGov? What is it? Where does it come from? where are we seeking this?
So ClearGov we currently use for our budget. So when you go online and your book that you got, when I gave you the big book, that's ClearGov. So we
But
use that.
who provides that? Where does it actually come from? Who sets it up and?
It's a software company that, and we contract with them through, for them to provide a budget, manage our capital budget, manage our budget book. So we have an agreement with them. They provide the software to provide transparency and obviously budget books, et cetera. They're not a financial management company, as in, we can't do accounts receivable, accounts payables through them, but they're more of a portal to financial information. And they came about, probably about 6-7 years ago, they came on really strong when a lot of municipalities, specifically in Massachusetts, were looking for ways to become more transparent with their budget. You run financial management systems generally are not made to be transparent. It's just numbers and it doesn't look good. And I can give you a spreadsheet and you can't make any sense of it whatsoever. I still don't understand them.
Well, excuse me for interrupting, but that's why I asked the question, because we're here today for the taxpayers or the residents to listen to help them understand the minutia of all of this. And I just want to know where it's coming from. We just pay these people this company to provide this sort
So
of direction?
Kerry does probably about 90% of the back-end work. She provides, she uploads the financials from our current financial management software, and then Kerry kind of cross-references, make sure everything adds up the way it should. It goes into the software, and then we present it.
Okay, thank you.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, Craig, first you, I think, set out a few hearts aflutter with the $100 million Center for Active Living. Is it effectively tying this into the general ledger?
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
Yep.
good.
Directly into the expense lines.
All right, terrific. Barbara, I think you've got your hand up, I'm told.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Carrie, does this mean that next year we can expect our budget books to have the correct information in them for the columns that we need, like the year-to-date of December 31st and the preceding year as well, actual as well as the budget?
Mr. Chair, I can
So like
answer that.
Jill,
Next year
please.
when,
So this year, we were still transitioning from the non-digital budget book, including the personnel and salary information that we have that Carrie's had to upload. So a lot of this workload for the new position is taking the workload away from Carrie in particular and me in more general. So not showing the FY '24, it's not a mistake. It's in the system, but it wasn't activated for the printed budget. So that's something that we're looking at, total quality control of the budget book itself, which is really I know we've talked about it being a fluid document. It's something that is completely finalized once the select board votes its budget and transmits it to the finance committee. So Barbara, you're right. You've caught a lot of great things for us and we appreciate it, but it's not an issue of the software itself. It's just the issue of a paper presentation of a live document per se.
Well, to the extent that, I think to Barbara's point, we could get that included for next year, it could be, I think we would find that to be helpful.
Yeah, us as well.
Terrific, thank you.
Yes,
Other
thank you.
questions? Tracy, please.
So as I understand it, ClearGov is the way that the general public can see live in motion what's happening with the town budget. And so it's a way that translates that information so that it's public-facing and more user-friendly. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I think that's well said. I think to the extent that people who are watching this have not seen, I would encourage them to go to Budget Central and click on the ClearGov tab. There's some really interesting graphical information and all the numbers and summaries and whatnot. It really is a very helpful platform, I find.
It is. And, excuse me.
Sorry, Craig, I think you were going to say something?
Yeah, just to clarify, those numbers that weren't correct and weren't reflecting the right way do reflect correctly now. So if anyone needs a reprint of specific, department or 3, 5, 10 pages, reach out to Kerry and I can reprint them for you and provide them for you. But that has been addressed, so that is all fixed now.
Terrific, thank you very much. John, I think you were next.
Yeah, thank you. I may have missed it at a previous meeting, the Conservation Department Assistant, that hasn't been filled. What's changed in the Conservation Department to make that position go away?
I guess they determined that they just, because it hasn't been filled, they didn't find a need to actually fill it, so they gave up the position. I don't really understand what happened in the Conservation Department previously, but all I know is they no longer need the position, so.
Okay.
So there
Jill?
was, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we had a wetlands coordinator position that had been vacant, and that's funded in part by the wetlands protection application fees that come in. So what we were able to do is repurpose the Conservation Department assistant. We found that the wetlands coordinator is able to do the administrative work as well as to go out and do some field work to assist both the conservation agent and the assistant conservation agent. So with this being repurposed into the finance position, the sticker office, as you might have seen, in the summer had limited hours, wasn't open full days. We're hoping to expand the hours of the sticker office and still push people to the online platform. Hopefully, people get reacquainted with that, but it's more of an expansion of services and for the sticker office and from the sticker office. That was a priority for the select board as well.
John, please.
That was my next question about the sticker office. I mean, I appreciate the online option. Is there, I would assume that the online, if folks access the online side of the sticker office, it's actually helpful to the town for processing and we don't have those big long lines and those short hours we have to deal with. Is there any thought to incentivizing turning more and more people towards online?
Yeah, it's something that we've been thinking a lot about, particularly because the first year of the online system, we had a lot of people participating with or using it. And then as we saw that keeping the sticker office also open for limited hours, it seemed either more custom in practice or easier for someone just to come in, but we still had to input all of the information back into City Hall system on the back end. So City Hall systems had an upgrade. It reads and it looks more user-friendly than it did in the version a few years ago. But we can try as much as we can to incentivize, including paying or encouraging people to pay by check or use a credit card. But it's still, some people, we still have the person who wants to have the very first sticker, and they might not get it because someone online, when we open the portal early, would be able to get it. So we're still working through it.
Never ceases to amaze me when you drive in here on a Memorial Day adjacent day to find 50 or 75 or 100 people wrapped around the building waiting to get their stickers. Joanne, please.
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Chair. The reason I'm asking these questions is that there's so many people out there who are paying the taxes that support all of this and support these budgets, and they're too busy earning a living and raising a family to be able to figure out all of this online stuff. So I think it's up to us to ask these questions and make sure that our taxpayers understand where the money's going and they can get the information without having to be able to come home after they've worked all day and go on their computer to figure this all out. And by the way, I love being able to go in and get my sticker right in the office. That's what a small town is all about. And I hope we don't get too far away from that where we tell them, oh, go look it up, pull out your computer and look it up, it's right there. Because for a lot of us, it isn't just right there. So we need to ask simple questions and get simple answers sometimes to do you have any idea if this whole budget is accepted, what our tax rate will be, what the taxpayer can expect to be paying for all of this? I don't want to get too far away from that, but thank you for all of your explanations and all of the work that goes into this.
Thank you.
Other questions? Kristen, please.
I don't have a question. I just want to follow up on Joanne
Observations.
with a comment. I agree, Joanne, it's part of the community coming in to meet, just like it is going to the dump. Coming in to get your sticker and have a conversation, and for folks that are maybe only here seasonally, to come in and ask a few questions, have an informal conversation, which is not something that you get online. So I think there is value in keeping that personal communications open with our residents.
Thank you, Kristen. So just for the sake of clarity, the reallocation of the funds from the other divisions, the elimination of the request for the Department Assistant in Conservation, we are still net 156 town employees, right? We're not adding another.
No, it's not adding anybody. No, actually, we're almost eliminating one of the positions because the lead position was a part-time position. So we're eliminating the part-time position and keeping another full-time position in a sense.
Okay.
We're just moving the money around.
Okay. Since I just asked that question, I'm going to follow up with something slightly tangential. There's a request for 5 new hires in the FY proposed 26 budget. We're assuming, as I understand it, 1 FTE and 2 half FTEs, so 2 salaries for the adult daycare. following the expiration of the initial grant funding. So does that mean, am I correct in assuming that we're assuming 7 prospective new salaries? 5 plus 2
What do we
for
have?
FY '26?
Yeah, I guess well, they
Well,
are
you have
being,
two, you'll have 5 new positions.
Yep.
And then the 2 full-time equivalent from the adult day.
Yep.
Which, yes, was funded, they were funded, those 2 positions, full-time equivalents were funded by the grant in FY '25, FY '26 to continue the program. They're actually in the budget.
Right. So hence,
Yeah.
5 new employees requested, but 7 new salaries assumed, assuming you get the 5.
correct.
Yeah, okay, good,
Yep.
thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. The assessing budget is, for FY 2026, $361,434. Salaries are at $272,834, and expenses are at $88,600. Their operating expenses increased $1,450. And again, this is mostly mainly due to the continuing education, meetings, dues, and travel for their staff to retain education and professional growth. The IT technology budget for FY 2026 is $965,872. Salaries are at $458,122, and expenses are at $507,750. Their operating expenses for FY 2026 increased $7,750. So again, we're seeing the increase under meetings, dues, and travel. Some expenses increased to office supplies, operational supplies of $2,000, continuing education of $2,000, and professional consulting for $2,000. Barbara, do you have a question?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Please, Barbara.
In the prior year accomplishments for the assessing department, I was just wondering 2 things. One, approximately how many of the people who request abatements actually get them percentage-wise? And 2, was the transition to the cloud-based platform the reason that we changed our online database?
So the abatements, I would have to find out from the assessor on that one. So the question was how many abatements were actually approved?
Right.
And then the other question was what?
We changed our online database. We used to have one that I thought was more user-friendly. I mean, this one isn't bad, but a lot of the other towns have this one too. And I just wondered if the reason we did that was because of the change to the cloud-based platform. I don't really know. Did we have to do that, in other words?
Yeah, I can comment on that. We previously, the software vendor, when we were hosting the software for the assessing department, they didn't offer an online version so that general public could go in and look for it. So we had a company build one for us. So we moved away from, it was People Forms platform, we moved away from it because we were paying for that service, and now the current vendor going to an online platform allows us to not have to pay that additional. I think it was about $4,000 or $5,000 a year just for the assessing database. So we moved away from that. The current one is not quite as much detail because they're not updating the values in real time, but it meets the requirements for the state assessing department, which is, I believe, to provide the current value every single year. And the record cards look a little bit different, but you know, I didn't see a need to to pay for 2. Basically, we had an increase going to the platform, which was, I think it was about $4,000 or $5,000, and that cost was offset by taking away the People Forms portal and going to the vendors one.
But since, but purchase of services didn't go down, where would that savings show up in the budget book? I'm just not seeing it.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, that's usually under the IT budget, the purchase of services, and as we take on other softwares, you're not going to see it really necessarily a savings of the $4,000.
Yeah, it basically became just a moving of funds from one place to another. Where the big savings is we were previously paying close to $40,000 a year to People Forms for their software. We've now moved over to an Esri platform, which is only about $20,000 a year. So we're kind of moving things around, looking for efficiencies as opposed to kind of doubling up on these softwares. So you will start to see a new platform come in with our GIS department, who's working more on a little bit better platform. Public Works is working on it as well. So that's where the saving is on the GIS side, because that was coming out of that budget.
Okay, thank you.
Craig, while we've got you up there, could you just give us a quick flyby, and I think you just touched on it, but the $350,000 in the purchase of services, just briefly explain that.
Yeah, so what we tried to do, the town manager a few years ago said all the departments were funding their own software. For example, the police department was getting, they were paying for their software out of their line item. Jill came up with the idea to put it all in one place, and I think it's the best way to do it. So 500 and, I think it's 350, I think, we're at 400 now?
I think it's at 400.
Yeah, we're at 400,000 now. Just as an example, 160,000 of that comes from two softwares, our Microsoft licensing and our financial management system. So that 160,000 is right out the door there. Police department, fire departments, their softwares run, off the top of my head, that's probably another $60,000. So, and then we have all these other little pieces of software. So we tried to put all the software into one location. So purchase of services, any department that needs software, they come to us and we just pay it out of purchase of services. And then, at the end of the day, each line item isn't going up on the departmental level. And, one of the things and the biggest problem that we have is municipal budgets tend to go up 3.5%. Software companies, they don't care. They go up 5-10%. Yeah, I think our Microsoft licensing went up 6% last year. So, and we're kind of at the mercy of it. We really can't do much about it. So, I think 2 years ago the budget line was 300,000. Now we're at 400,000. So, software companies, they don't care. They're, they don't go by 3.5-2%, whatever. So. That's where you're going to see an increase in costs.
Good, well, that makes sense. The consolidation would seem to make sense too.
Yeah, and trying to move things around, put different, trying to get different softwares to do better things. If we go with a new financial management system, we probably don't need to buy that vendor's transparency site because we already have the ClearGov one up and running.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Back to you, Carrie, please.
Okay, so elections budget is at $57,778 for FY 2026. Temporary wages are $7,668, and expenses are at $50,110. Temporary wages are decreased by $8,607, and operating expenses are decreased $28,500. So as you are aware, for FY 2025, we had a larger budget for elections due to all of the elections that we were having in that fiscal year. And in FY 2026, we'll see a decrease because of less elections happening. So that's due to that. The sticker office budget is at $68,162, salaries of $31,312. And those are the part-time temporary wages for the seasonal help in the sticker office. And then we have expenses at $36,850. The salaries decreased by the $25,508 that we just discussed about the accounting office. And the operating expense increased by $13,500. So operational supplies increased $13,000. That's the main thing on here. That is for something that we use in the sticker office for, it's called Civic Plus, and we use this platform. And so the services for that has increased. And then the stickers that we purchase have also increased over the past few years. So that's why that line item has increased that, because it's also gone over budget again in FY '23 and '24. Office supplies increasing $1,000, and this is due to the new position coming in. We want to make sure that they have everything that they need, and if there's anything additional that they need for that office that they find, to make the office run more efficiently than it has been. Uniforms are decreasing by $200. They do not wear uniforms in that office, so I didn't find a need for that. And meetings, dues, and travel, there's really, I decreased it by $300 and left $100 just in case the person that travels from here to the town hall puts in for any mileage reimbursement. But as far as meetings, I didn't find it necessary to have any of that. I actually bumped up the accounting budget for this person to go to meetings and continue in education.
Tracy,
Yes.
please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, everything, forgive my ignorance, everything
that's
that's
fine.
brought in through the sticker office goes into the general fund?
Correct.
Okay.
Well,
It's not
no,
like-
that's not true. So if they sell shellfish stickers, doesn't the shellfish sticker revenue goes into the shellfish revolving fund?
The commercial shellfish
Yeah.
revenue. Yeah.
The beach stickers, the transfer station stickers, the combo stickers that you get, those go to the general fund. The shellfish goes to the shellfish revolving.
But to be clear, is that all shellfish or just, to Jill's point, commercial shellfish?
I don't know.
Oh.
I think it's both. I don't think we take in shellfish. I can look and find
Okay.
out
Let
for
us
you.
get
Put it
back
on
to
the
you,
list.
Mike. Yeah, put it on your list.
Yeah, put it on your list. Send me a question. Okay, so the library assessments for FY 2026, the combined is $714,244. The Eldridge Public Library proposed an increase of 3.5% with an assessment of $701,244. And the South Chatham Library's proposed assessment for 2026 is $13,000 with an increase of $1,000 compared to 2025. Other departmental budgets, these, like the Veteran Services is under Community Services budget, but we just didn't present it at that time. Veteran Services is at $129,908 for FY 2026. The Veterans Benefits in 2026 is increasing by $30,702 over FY 2025, and the assessment is for FY 2026, $69,908. So the Veterans Benefits is going to be at $60,000 for FY 2026. And so in FY 2024, we actually went over budget in Veteran Services. So there's an increase of people applying for benefits through the Veterans Services. And so they're, let me just read, I have written down something. They're requesting an increase to their benefits as they have seen more and more veterans and their surviving spouses in need of benefits. So again, we're probably looking for a supplemental for FY 2025 because we didn't receive this information until after the budget for 2025 was already presented. So hence the increase in veteran services for 2026.
Joanne, please.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Who's our Veteran Services Officer for our region?
What's his name? Is his name? I don't. Do you remember his name? Gary something?
We share a regional veterans officer with the 14 other Cape Towns, and I'm just,
I would like very much, if possible, to bring in our Veteran Service Officer and have him explain some of these benefits and why there may be an increase or not. I think it's important to know what the needs are of the veterans and what this money goes for and how we serve them, how the taxpayer serves our veterans.
Okay, I can reach out and see if he's available.
I think that would be very helpful.
Okay.
I don't think we've seen a Veteran Service Officer in many years now.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
John, please.
Yeah, I would support what Joanne just mentioned. I have very little knowledge of how the state, the Commonwealth, or the town addresses veteran needs, and I'd like to know more.
Thank you, Andy.
Carrie, is there a flow-through aspect to this? Do we receive state or federal funds to pay for this?
We do. So we receive 75% of the assessment that we pay, but it's not until the following fiscal year where we see it. So we're going to see money coming in 25 that we paid out in 2024. So it's kind of offset that way.
Okay, but in other words.
So it's state aid that we get. It's part of our state aid.
But for this fiscal year that we're budgeting, there will be an offsetting revenue, or does it just come into the general
Yes,
fund?
there will be an offsetting revenue that will come in, but it's part of the money that we paid out from in 2025.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Back to you, Carrie.
Okay, sorry. Public ceremonies are at 21,000. I decreased this line by 2,000 in 2026 as they haven't been expending their line item in 2023 and 2024, so hence the decrease. Other public events in Chatham Band is level funded at $10,000 for 2026, and the Railroad Museum is at $5,000 for 2026, as requested by them.
Joanne, please.
On the band, do our band, the members of the band, do they get paid any kind of money or reimbursement for uniforms, or
No.
how does that work?
I believe this is actually done through the police department, and they send over the invoices, but they're just invoices for their time that they've done, not uniforms.
we have a contract with Chatham Band, and so we provide them the amount, like a grant, and it's up to them to disperse that amongst themselves for uniform replacement or whatever they might need. It's up to
Okay.
the band to do that.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
My son was never paid when he played in the band.
Okay, good to know.
I made sure of that.
And then just to differentiate, public ceremonies is different than the Independence Day Parade Committee. So public ceremonies, veterans and Memorial Day, and Rob Franz has done a really great job and very frugal. So the budget hasn't had a need to go up.
Eric, please. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you. Sorry, just to jump back to the veterans line item that we were just talking about.
Yep.
So I understand the flow-through aspect and then the reimbursement being off by a year. But budgeted for this year, is that net of what we're expecting to receive, or it's the full amount? And then when we get that that money from the state, that just goes into free cash or wherever else it would go?
Right, so this is the full amount of the assessment. We budget for the full amount. And then, so we get state aid, so it goes into the general fund, yeah. Does that
that
answer
good,
your
Eric?
question? Are you still there?
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Back to you, Carrie.
Employee benefits are budgeted at $7,086,118 for FY 2026. This is an increase of $825,925 compared to 2025. Workers' comp is up $5,000 from FY 2025. Medicare employer share is up $40,000 compared to FY 2025. Police, fire, and injury is a 3% increase, up $27,225. Retirement assessment is up $369,765 compared to FY 2025. And that line is actually the only line that you'll see a change on in the general government in your budget book. I just received their assessment a couple weeks ago, so that is the assessment that we have for FY 2026. And then healthcare is $3,543,946, and that's the same amount that was originally put into the budget. That hasn't changed. So Medicare is up to $40,000. As you know, as salaries increase, our Medicare also increases, and that's the same with the retirement assessment. As our salaries increase, as we gain more employees, these type of items are actually going to go up. So that's what the increases are for. Health insurance, Medicare, we pay 50% of Medicare for our retirees. That went up to 12 to 24%, depending on what plan they were on. Our health insurance that we offer, we used to offer, we still offer the same plans. However, we used to be at a tier of 65, 35, I think that was it, but now we're back to 70, 30 split for all employees. And that was to retain employees here in the town of Chatham. And comparing our split insurance compared to other surrounding towns, we were kind of on the lower side. So that's why that's staying at the amount that it's staying at for FY 2026.
Andy, please.
Carrie, are we still members of the Cape Cod Municipal Insurance Group?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
And we're
So-
currently looking at other plans, high deductible plans, but we haven't added those onto this insurance plan yet. But we might be able to in 2026.
I mean, that's a significant increase
Yeah.
in cost, to put it mildly.
So that is just for the employees that currently take insurance.
right.
It's not adding anybody on or anything. So there's no additional funds in there.
Thank you.
Tracy, please.
I guess I was just going to ask, thank you, Mr. Chair. Carrie, more generally, are these do you happen to know, are these levels of increase sort of commensurate or normal compared to some of the other local towns? Like, is this what all the towns are experiencing?
All the towns are experiencing the health insurance increases, yep. So I believe it was last fiscal year, I'm going to talk about another town, Barnstable, used to have their health insurance at 50-50. So the town would pay 50% and the employee would pay 50%, but they weren't seeing their employees stay there. They were leaving for other towns that might offer better health insurance or, more money or whatever. So they actually went up to 75-25 to keep their employees and retain them. So theirs is probably going to be much higher than this.
And as it relates to the budget increase, we have monthly or even more frequent meetings with the Monomoy Regional School District team as well as the town of Harwich, and we're all carrying the same percentage increase until we have the actual numbers that come in. But as Carrie said, this is the premium increase. It's not necessarily adding or decreasing employees that are covered.
Joanne, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a reminder, our viewers, what you see here is the repository of what you don't see on the salary items. In other words, the items listed in the book for salaries don't include the amount of their insurance that is included only in this.
Correct, that's correct.
This line item here.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Tracy?
So this does not include that potentially this would have the 7 new salaries would affect these numbers?
Right, the health insurance does not include the 7 positions or 5 positions.
That becomes
is-
determined once the person is actually hired.
Right. Whoops, I must have clicked something.
But just more on that. So when it comes to the health insurance budget, it's something that we look at year after year of the number of employees and what we would anticipate how many new employees would come on. And so I think what Carrie's saying is that we feel that with the budgeted increase that we have, as well as where we think the number of employees either will stay or maybe go to a high deductible once we offer that, she feels comfortable with the budget as it's presented, right?
Yep.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Whiteley?
do we have a sense of how many percentage-wise of our employees take advantage of being on our health insurance plan?
Oh, do I have that number?
Carrie can get back to you. So we're required to offer health insurance and pay at least a minimum of 50%. Some towns stayed with that 50% minimum, as Barnstable had, and other towns had moved away. I think this was probably adopted in the early 80s in Massachusetts for that requirement. But we can get back to you with the number of employees or the percentage.
Yeah, I can get you the number of employees, and I can also get you the retirees as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Back to you, Carrie, please.
Sure.
I'll put it on my list. I'll send it to you.
Okay, thank you. I'm writing it down. Undistributed insurance. So insurance budget for FY 2026 is $1,122,835. This is the same amount that was presented in the proposed budget, an increase of $144,959, or 14.82% increase. So the insurance costs have increased over the years. Estimated increases for FY 2025 for these by the insurance company were between 10 and 20%. So I just did around a 15%, just to keep it where it was for FY 2025. So we see a lot of the increases due to a lot of the things that are happening around. It's not just necessarily happening in this town, but it's happened all over the place. So we get our insurance through like a bulk kind of, and they sell it off in like wholesale kind of insurance. So.
And Carrie, I think I've asked you this before. We're confident now, if memory serves, last year we had a couple of buildings that were off the asset roster.
Correct, right.
We're confident that we've got everything covered?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. So the reserve fund is also under the undesignated, and that is level funded for 2026 for $100,000. And this reserve fund is actually held under the Finance Committee, so if we need to use any funds under the reserve, we have to come to you and get that permission. And these are for unforeseen, unexpected expenses that come in, so that are not budgeted for usually.
And non-recurring.
I'm sorry.
And non-recurring.
Yes, exactly, and non-recurring. Yep. The debt service for 2026, $8,576,227. Principal is at $6,802,163. Interest is $1,624,64, and short-term interest of $150,000. And this is the same budget amount that was in the proposed budget originally. Nothing has changed since then.
Tracy, please.
Thank you. If I may ask another time.
Sure.
Is our debt seem in line with other local communities? Do you happen to know?
I do not know what other communities have for debt, but I would assume so. So this debt, almost all of it is Prop 2.5. So we're allowed to go above our levy for this. We don't have to stay within our levy for this. So that's the, kind of the good thing about going and doing a borrowing for Prop 2.5. I think I would have to look around and see what other towns' debt is and see if it's in, I would think it would be.
I can send you some information on that. The Massachusetts Taxpayer Association annually publishes a list. It's based on kind of registered population, which for the town of Chatham is roughly 6,600 people. Of course, there's some months of the year where we're 4 or 5 or 6 times that, 4 or 5 times that. So our percentage of debt, per capita debt, relative to our population of 6,600 is quite high. I think we're number 2 after Provincetown. But the point has been fairly made that we're not actually running a town of 6,600 people. We're, in many ways, running a town of 25 or 30,000 people. So it's slightly erroneous and misleading. But I can, they publish the raw data every year, so I can send that to you.
Okay. So now I'm going to get into the capital requests for general government. This is consulting and engineering for $100,000. For townwide consulting and engineering, this is a annual request every year that is under the town manager's office. Tracy, I had.
Tracy.
Does it get, so where it's requested again because it was expended?
So there are items that do get expended under there. So if there's engineering costs that maybe aren't budgeted for and they need something, they'll request it from the town manager if she has the money to fund it. And then she has the consulting part. Do you know how?
Yeah, in most recent years, it's gone to fund the engineering and design for the Center for Active Living. Mostly that. There's been some, I meant to print it out. Kathy in my office does a really great job managing this budget, but we can get you the year-to-date. But I can say, though, much of the cost and preparation of the town meeting articles for the Center of Active Living has come out of this fund. That's primarily it for this past year.
The other requests are all from under IT, so I will pass this over to Craig to talk about some of his capital requests for 2026.
Thank you. I guess, would you like me to go through line by line?
They're up there on the screen.
Yep. Would you like me to go through line by line?
All right. Although I think we
So-
could probably understand annual camera upgrade.
Yep.
Without too much assistance.
Yeah, so we have about 150 plus cameras around town. The oldest ones that we have in play right now are at the community center. There's about 30 plus cameras there. Cameras tend to run $500 to $1,500 per unit, depending on what we're purchasing. They generally have a lifespan of 5 to 10 years. So this budget would be to begin the process of staying on top of upgrading these cameras, so we don't get a situation where we have to, the camera system goes down at the community center. I think they have about 30 cameras at the community center, and we use these cameras all the time. There's occasions when we need to capture footage. We have them at the skate park. We have them in the community center. We have them in the town hall parking lots. We have them in these parking lots. We have them in the police station, which we just did an upgrade of the police station cameras. So all the booking area, this is all part of the camera system. So I'm presuming that we're probably going to be looking to upgrade, probably around 25 to 30 a year, and we'll start a cycle of just starting to update them, get them up to date. So that's what this line item is for. Maintenance of access controls. So As you'll see in this building in particular, the outside, we have a swipe card system. We're trying to get completely away from issuing keys to employees. We don't want to issue keys, locks, et cetera. People leave, then we got to re-key them, et cetera. So we have access controls. One of the problems with, and particularly this building, is when they built the access controls, they put the bars, it's a push bar to get in and out of the building. And within that bar, within the hinge, there's a little wire. And that wire over the years, I can't remember when this building was built, it's probably 10, 12 years ago, that just wears away. So the goal is to eventually start to get rid of these door strike type setups and put it into the hinge in the door so that there's less wear and tear on it. It's just a very simple mechanism in the door. It opens and closes. Town Hall, for example, we have those types of doors when we decided to put access controls in. We have access controls in this building, the police department, Town Hall, community center. We're looking at the Center for Active Living as part of that upgrade there, just to get rid of keys. And we also know when people come into buildings. If we have no keys, when they come in, they tap the card, it creates a record, and if there's any issues whatsoever, we have a record of it. DPW, for example, has a key card system. We issue all the employees key cards so they can just pop in and tap in. That's part of that. Chatham TV equipment upgrade, that's just general things that Mark and his staff might require here. You know, microphones, things get, you know, out of date pretty quickly. The cameras, if Mark needs some new cameras, some new softwares, et cetera. And then the financial management system, I don't know if Kerry would like to chime in on this one, but this would be to begin what I would call phase one of the process. Financial management system probably going to take 2 to 3 years to implement across the board. We can maintain our current system. The goal would be with this appropriation is to come up with a vendor who we're happy with, begin the process of implementing. First things first is we're going to have to look at updating the chart of accounts, which will get redesigned, reset up. And then kind of the initial goal would be to do the basic services of general ledger, accounts payable, accounts receivables, maybe purchasing, and possibly looking at, I did have a list here of kind of things that we'd look at. Go ahead, Carrie.
So right now, our financial software, the assessors use it, and also the treasure collectors use it for utilities, real estate, personal property, motor vehicle, boat excise tax, those types of things. So they would also be part of this change for finance software. Our system is currently almost 20 years old. It's on what's called Microsoft Access, which I don't even think they build financial systems on Microsoft Access anymore. So a lot of the time when you're looking for something, it scrolls a lot because it's looking for the information. So it scrolls through almost 20 years of data. The other problem with it, it's just inefficient and it has limited functionality. When I say limited functionality, you can't run a report that runs from 2023 to 2025 under one line. You have to run that report just for one fiscal year, and then you run it again for the next fiscal year, and then the next fiscal year. Which is, to me, that's inefficient and just not a very good function of the system. And I've asked them if they could change it, and I've gotten nowhere with that. There's been no upgrades to the system. I don't think they're actually going to put in any upgrades for it. It doesn't integrate well with the systems that are coming out, like ClearGov. When Craig was talking about the bridge of stuff like financial softwares, I'm not even sure. We'll have to see if Vadar is part of that, but a lot of the times we're finding that Vadar does not have a bridge to any of these other newer softwares that come out. So I just think that it's time to start looking and moving on to something that's a little bit better in the, you know.
Sounds like it's past time.
Yeah, I know. And there's another, like he was saying, we need a new chart of accounts. We really do, because we're running out of numbers that we can use in the system because they've been used so much. You can't go back and use an old number that was previously used, because what if you have to search in the system for that line? So.
Andy, please.
It's not in this slide, but I keep wanting to ask Craig, security, particularly for outside intervention. I mean, there have been several systems, and most recently, that have been violated, either held hostage, or corrupted. How are we doing in defending against that?
Yep. So our first step with everything is to not house or host any softwares within town. We don't have any servers, and we actually have one server, which is our video camera system. That's the only server we have left in town. Everything else is hosted in the cloud. All our Microsoft Office, et cetera, everything is in the cloud. Our financial management system and Vadar only went over in the past 3 years, I believe, to an online source. So the vendor then is responsible for maintaining their systems. They're in a cloud environment. We also are in the process, and Ryan Darman has been working on the multi-factor authentication, so that if people are logging in, they get the phone, they got to, as you know now, everything's multi-factor. You got to type in your telephone number, and if it doesn't match up, and then you got to type it in, and it gives you 5 minutes, and if it doesn't work out, then you got to send another code. It's cumbersome, but that is part of our security system now. So, but the big thing is, if Vadar's hosting the data, it's their problem. They have to provide us our data, and at any point in time, they need to worry about the security. So actually what Vadar does is they have multiple copies of our software running on multiple servers. They virtualize it, so they'll have a site running wherever their data center is, and then they might have another copy in California or Chicago. So at any point in time, if this one gets hacked or there's some type of ransom going on, they'll just bounce it over to the other one, which are replicated. So, a lot of it is we just don't want to deal with stuff in-house. Public information, we try to keep everything as secure as possible. We're in the Microsoft cloud. But, as I say, with municipal government, a nicely written letter to the town manager's office, and you can get pretty much whatever information you need. So security is there. I could spend $500,000 on security a year, but I just don't see the need for it right now.
Do we ever test the vendors, or do we ever interface with them and ask them what's the current status of their protections?
They're required to let us know annually if they have any breaches, and they're required to provide software updates based upon state and basically software. I don't get a written letter. We could look at testing them to see if there are issues there, but they're required, as to be a vendor, they're required to meet a certain standard.
I would hope that if there's a breach, they would tell us immediately and not wait a year.
Yes, I do too. Well, that Microsoft one that happened recently, it wasn't anyone hacked it. They just put in a bad piece of code when they did an update, and everyone got messed up.
Sure.
So, looking at new vendors for our financial management system, maybe that's something that we need to look at, is they need to provide to us their disaster recovery, their cybersecurity attack process and protocols.
Thank you.
Eric, please.
Thank you. So sounds like we're definitely due for an upgrade, so I'm supportive of the concept for sure. I know you kind of categorize this as phase one for the $150,000. Is this for consultants, or, because it doesn't sound like we're ready to purchase anything yet, or what is the 150,000 for?
So what I did was I went out and I got the biggest number from the most expensive vendor in financial management systems, and they informed me that it would probably run about $400,000 to fully implement everything that we needed. So this 150,000 would get us the accounts the general ledger, the rebuild of the chart accounts, the treasurer collectors, the accounts payable, accounts receivables. We would actually get that process, that software, and be able to implement it. The next phase is a big one, which is the utility billing. That's a large portion of our of what we do on the collection side. So, and it's not just a matter of, hey, we're just going to roll out a new software. There's radio reads that have to pull the information off the water meters. There's integration, so that's a bigger part of it. And then also human resources. You know, do we bring in a full human resources software? Do we push off the purchasing and do a big purchasing? So, but with the initial 150,000, we'll have kind of bare bones, basic financials in place, and then a plan to move forward. Now, if we choose another vendor, they may not be $400,000. We may have to come back and say, oh, we only need 50,000 or 20,000 or 70 or 80. We're not sure at this moment in time.
And Mr. Chair, I think with the initial investment, it's basically getting our house, our processes and procedures in order, including the chart of accounts. The chart of accounts, creating that could take almost 2 years. So this is sort of what we would call the infrastructure to prepare us to upgrade the system.
Yeah, it seems wildly prudent. So, well done.
And then the next line item would be GIS migration. As I've mentioned before, we're using a software called PeopleForms. We've now gone over to the Esri platform for strictly GIS. We do have a GIS coordinator, and she's working on taking all of our GIS systems from an original version of Esri over to the online version. So now we have basically everything on the GIS side will now be housed online, and we'll have no files stored anywhere. One of the nice things is about the online version is it allows us to, if Kristen makes a change to one layer, it reflects in every map throughout the town. So we're not having to go in, and she's not having to go in and update the conservation map when there's a change, and then the local business district and the parking, et cetera. So part of this is we have a company that we've been using. We've been testing them out recently, and we would like them to assist us in creating a large number of base maps, and then the goal would be that the GIS coordinator would then manage the layers and make sure all the information is in place. So if you'd, at some point in time, if you go on to the water quality lab for the town of Chatham water quality, we've created a new map there, and it shows the water quality testing sites. So that's kind of what you're going to end up seeing.
Brett, can you just provide an overview, if you would, what GIS stands for and what it is?
Yep, so the Geographical Information System is the big picture, and basically what it does is it takes all the layers of things that the town has. So right now we're working on a public works map. So when the public works employees get a request for some type of work, et cetera, Pam can go in, and inside that map is all the schematics for where the water and sewer pipes are, where catch basins are, where conservation lines are, where easements are, where private roads are. So it's basically a software that creates a picture of everything that the town could or could not manage. So for example, plowing. When we have a storm event, someone calls in, hey, I need my driveway plowed. Pam goes in, pulls up the address. She knows that whatever the road is, this is a private road. But somebody else who's not Pam or may not be there looks at it and sees it shows a big pink line which says it's a private road. So that's not going to be plowed right away. That's the obligation. So it's just basically
That's
creating
just a
layers.
scennario, for instance.
Yeah.
We do plow private roads, but
Yes.
we do not plow
Yep.
driveways.
Yeah, so we know which roads are what, we know which, we have sidewalks. So for Rob, he wants to plan when sidewalks should be fixed, roadways should be fixed, infrastructure within the ground. So it just creates these big layers of information, and you look over it as a map, and you click on it, and it tells you exactly what's there.
Joanne, please.
Well, before we leave that, is the town plowing the sidewalks this time?
Most definitely. So if one of your sidewalks and you're on a public road has not been plowed, then certainly we can contact DPW. But this particular storm, sidewalks are taken care of. Parking downtown, you can walk on the sidewalk. It's just right now we're trying to get the snow removed so you can walk from your car to get to the sidewalk.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so there's a couple more.
Yep, so the next one's land management and assessment and GIS. This is where we pay for the GIS software out of this account. And then there's also some land management funds in there. Terry's going out to actually capture some fire hydrants that we don't have marked and are not on our GIS layers. So he has a software, he's gonna go out and he's gonna mark them, and we're going to add them in. So this is kind of, basically land management side of the actual assets out in the field and part of the licensing. The next one's network upgrade. As you know, we have a large WPC water purification facility. There's multiple buildings on that site, and they're all connected with fiber. So all the information as wastewater is being processed, there's a whole mechanism in play. This is to upgrade the switches that control all the sites within the building. These are a little bit more expensive than our standard switches because they're on this SCADA system, which basically runs all of our water and sewer infrastructure. So that's what this is for. This is a one-time purchase. We've got about, I can't remember when the water plant went in, I think maybe 2010, something like that. So, we've got 14 years out of it, so it's time to upgrade them. Studio upgrade, that's Mark is going to do some upgrades in the studio here, soundboards, etc. So that is coming, that'll be funded from PEG funds as part of the cable access. So, things like the microphones,
His equipment in there.
his equipment in the building, in the studio, that'll all be part of the upgrade. And then the last thing is our technology. This covers printers, laptops, whatever staff need. We try to put all of our hardware onto a 4-year life cycle. Got about 120 laptops around throughout the town, pieces of hardware, probably about 50 printers. So we try to put them on a 4-year lifespan, so we don't have that one big hit. Some people have higher level stuff than others. Some people, the counter PCs at the sticker office, they don't need to be upgraded every 4 years. We might get 6 years out of them. So it's kind of just a way for us to keep up to date with technology. And that's all of the IT.
Terrific. Thank you, Craig. Any further questions for Craig? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Craig.
OPEB,
OPEB, that's the last one.
but
This
not the
is-
least.
No, not the least. This is an annual request, other post-employment benefits, liability, trust fund appropriation. This article will seek $150,000, as has done in the past. We're going to be getting the funds from overlay surplus, and it was approved by the Board of Assessors for that amount. So our town's current OPEB liability as of June 30th, 2024 was $16,250,404, sorry. Just- The OPEB surcharge commitment for FY 2025 is $635,839. So that's a 1.5% that's added to the tax bill. And we receive those funds in, and then it goes into the OPEB fund balance under the trust. Do you guys have any, additional information, questions on the OPEB?
Andy?
Carrie, how does that surcharge then get appropriated out and used for this?
So when the treasurer collector collects the tax money, it gets put into a fund, Fund 81, it's that's the trust account, sorry, that's the trust fund. It gets put into our OPEB account in our accounting system and on our bank. And the fund also earns interest.
Okay,
as
so
well.
it's essentially, it's almost a direct deposit.
It is, yes, it
We don't
goes
have to make
directly.
any separate appropriation.
No, we don't need to do that.
Okay,
It goes
great, thank
directly
you.
into there. And same with the transfer. When I transfer the money, I let the treasurer know, and then she transfers the money into the OPEB trust as well.
So, a couple of observations. First, relative to the last sentence. The town seeks to fully fund this liability within 15 years. That was an accurate statement. If I'm not mistaken, I think the OPEB trustees agreed to fund it within 12 to 15 years 3 years ago,
Okay,
maybe
well,
4.
I can update that. So the
So we
article's
just,
still
I
in draft.
think, I mean, I think it's probably more on the trustees to kind of reaffirm the trajectory. But I would note that correction.
Okay,
1, 2, I think the progress the town has made on this is really admirable, from where we were 7 or 8 years ago to where we are now. Our funding level, if my quick calculation is correct, following these two transfers of close to $800,000, our funding balance is approximately 44%. A couple of years ago, it was roughly 25, 28%, and we were definitely in the top quartile and maybe the top decile of towns in Massachusetts. So I think at 44%, we're really performing as we would hope
yep,
in defeasing this obligation, so.
I agree. Yeah. I think you're in, this town is in really good shape with their OPEB.
Yeah, I mean,
Liability.
schools less so, but
Right,
there's only so much we can do about that,
right.
or so little.
So that was the last slide, was the OPEB.
Okay, additional questions, comments for Carrie? Joanne, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before we leave the capital spending, I would like, from now on, to be able to have you be able to tell us what Chatham's per capita debt is and in comparison with other towns in Massachusetts. I know the chairman has done that for us, but I think that's something that you should be prepared to let us be able to tell the people of Chatham what that is. I think that's an important figure and where
Okay.
we stand
Sure, I'll look into
with
it.
other towns in the Commonwealth as far as our debt per capita.
And Joanne, just to be clear, that's nothing I've done. It's the Massachusetts Taxpayer Association up on the Hill that publishes this on an annual basis.
Right.
And I typically order copies of their little book and distribute them to all members of the committee. So when the new one comes out, I'll make sure everyone gets one.
Okay, I think it'd be a good
It's
idea.
not a very dynamic list, as you can imagine.
Yeah, I think
We're not
it's,
going from 2 to 200.
yeah, I think it's a good idea to have that announced through the government, town government too, for the benefit of the taxpayers.
Yep, no problem, I'll get it. Thank you.
Okay, anything further for Carrie? All right, then let's have a little pivot to our report, which I've started framing out. based on everybody's input. Some of you have written me, which I greatly appreciate, so I'm just gonna start kind of ticking through categories, because I'd like to get, as I said, everybody's sort of broad sense of the proposed budget. I do want to give Jill an opportunity to kind of give us her mindset as she's thinking about it. Not everybody in town has been able to benefit from the transmission memorandum, which is terrific and very insightful. So I thought if, Jill, if maybe you could start us out with just a couple minutes on how you were thinking about this budget this year, the demands on town, staffing, which are all sort of obviously implicit in any budget.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. So in preparing for the FY26 budget and with Carrie's second budget, we really worked to look through what is the root of any increases that the departments may be asking. And so Carrie did a deep dive into the turnbacks of last year, looking at last year's budget and looking previously at trends to see what we were for spending. And what we presented for the FY26 budget is really the budget driver, our inflation per se, is human capital. It's funding our staff. You'll note where Carrie has mentioned some of the budgets, especially general government, when we're required to mail out a warrant to each household. The warrants are becoming a little more, a little thicker, but a little more engaging to the voters, so they understand what's happening at town meeting as well as how we got here. So some of those costs have gone up minimally, but it's pretty much level funded when it comes to expenses. We saw some higher expenses from our water and sewer operators. We contract out for those services, but they and their predecessor are providing and have provided really excellent services. We haven't had any issues related, I should knock on wood right here, to the wastewater pollution control facility and our community's endorsement of investments in our water quality with PFAS removal. That's moving forward. So that's something is essential to our services. So I just wanted to mention that. I know we had proposed 5 newly funded positions, new positions to address workload and some other state mandates. And I appreciate the chair bringing up that when we accept a grant like we did for the Adult Day Program, the Riders Cove Respite Center, we did have to staff up for that. And you're right, the equivalent of 1 full-time position and 2 part-timers are now being carried in the community services budget category under the Center for Active Living. So I think that always hearing your input on what more we can put out and input into the budget book is really helpful. But I can say that we truly are just staying the course with this budget. There's not a lot of new initiatives that are being presented, if any. Our capital budget, we tried to keep it certainly below the 9% increase, and I know that Carrie's done an explanation on how free cash came in at $11 million this year versus $6 million in prior years, and how our receipts need by basically the DOR, Department of Revenue, I don't want to say mandates, but guidelines say that we can't overestimate our receipts coming in more than 90% of the actuals in the prior year. So I think the budget that we've worked with and empowering the department heads to own their budget as well as monitor the budget, and the additional position for Carrie in finance is just not for Carrie, but it's also allowing us to run trend analysis, look at various scenarios, look at areas where we possibly could do more or do less. Not that we haven't had any internal controls, because we have, but with Carrie and Alex before her, they're the face of the finance and accounting department because they are the accounting and finance department. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Certainly, we'll be presenting the budget to the select board with any of the changes that we've had, which have been pretty minor, except what Carrie had mentioned about our Barnstable County retirement and some of our insurance costs. We'll get that into detail so that the select board can then transmit it back to you after the chair presents the preliminary findings and recommendations of the FinCom, and that's scheduled for this coming Tuesday, a week from today on the 18th. So happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, comments or questions for Jill? Comments or questions for Jill?
I do want to say, I was looking through the budget book, and Eric, if you look, the health insurance, number of employees and retirees are included in my budget book on page 387, but certainly we can do a direct email to all of you, so you have those numbers.
Okay, no comments or questions for the town manager? All right, well, thank you, Jill. I think that's helpful context, not only for us, but for anybody who's watching the meeting. So let's pivot now, as I said, to our draft report. I've not endeavored yet to kind of meticulously try to order these topics, so they're just sort of dropping in because they're just dropping in. Beginning with water, I think we've concluded, and what I want to do is sort of test our conclusions before I go off and start writing what we allegedly have agreed to. But I do believe that we've agreed with the concept of a kind of a rate review based on that spreadsheet that I pulled together. I picked up a comment from last year's report, which I think carries well through, which is we're on the cusp over the next couple of years of adding 90 to 100 new homes in the town of Chatham, perhaps more, if we are increasingly fortunate in making progress on attainable and affordable housing. We have heard from Rob and Greg that there are limited sites prospectively for new wells, and that, as Rob said, the juice may not be worth the squeeze. It may not be worth making the investment based on the prospective return from these sites. We also know that in the summer months, we get perilously close at times, it seems, to depleting reserves. So I think I would suggest adding that we kind of reiterate our observation from last year is let's make sure that a conversation's being had amongst the relevant town departments on making sure we have sufficient water for 100+ new houses in town. Anybody disagree with that? Okay, so that's water. Free cash, I think we've talked about. We're going to bring a little thunder, but that's probably to be expected. Center for Active Living, I think we've agreed that we want to just express our support for a resolution of this project and moving forward with one of the anticipated, outcomes, we're broadly supportive of. Does that make sense, Andy?
Although, I mean, I don't fully understand all the aspects of that program, but are there opportunities there to pick up either more grant funding or other revenue generation? I mean, if we were fortunate to receive the grant to start, but adding the equivalent of 2 full-time is a fair expense.
Are you thinking operating or capital? It sounds like you're suggesting operating.
Oh, I'm talking about operating, definitely.
But not, can we get some kind of a grant funding for some part of the project if we spend $5.5 million to?
Well, that'd be nice too, but certainly the operating side.
Okay. Anybody disagree with that idea? Tracy?
I believe I recall Leah saying that there were some grants coming up that she was going to be applying for to try and recoup that.
Okay.
And I recall the same.
Yeah.
Let's put our stamp on it too.
Well, we could certainly include that if there's a consensus around that. I see a lot of nodding. Okay. Next one is the growth in town staffing. I personally think that the case has been made. I've received some expressions of reservation from one or two regarding one of the hires, two people in DPW rather than perhaps one, but I've not received a lot of feedback other than that. So do we have a consensus that we're satisfied with the case has been made for these 5 new employees? Tracy?
I feel pretty satisfied with the case that's been made, if we're looking for more feedback on that.
Okay, anybody else? Again, I see some nodding heads, but I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page before we start writing words.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Chairman, I think it's important for us to keep up all of our parks, keep up the infrastructure as it is. And I think these recommendations are well-founded. Yeah, I agree. Particularly the one about the inspector for the short-term rentals. We have to remember of the revenue that we bring in from the short-term rentals and how important it is to the taxpayers and our residents to know that they are operating the way they should be. And I think an inspector will be able to maintain a level of assurance for that.
Yeah, terrific. Okay, thank you. I'll take the opportunity that Joanne raises around the staffing of that position being kind of paid for itself. Obviously, we made a recommendation or an endorsement of the idea that we increase the fees. In thinking about the town's financial and accounting policies, I'm not aware that we have any sort of statement of position relative to what degree of cost recovery we want to broadly achieve on some things. And there are a number of elements, transfer station, short-term rental inspection fee, that come back to, do we want to try to improve cost recovery on the delivery of some of these municipal services? The water, is a perfect example of that. We're one of the lowest charging water. Our rate structure is one of the lowest on the Cape. Is that where we want to be? And I guess I was wondering, prospectively, do we want to recommend that these sort of standing charges, whatever they may be, transfer station, water, inspection fees, be reviewed on a number of X years? That the select board should mandate every 3 years or 4 years that these rate structures should be reviewed. Any thoughts on something like that? And then Jill, I'd be happy to have you weigh in and say that's the silliest idea I've ever heard, or I love it, or.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think that's an excellent suggestion. Through our budget process, departments do a survey of fees. It's on one hand, we need to break even. On the other hand, some find that it's another tax, so we try to balance those concerns, but certainly appreciate the note in the recommendation.
Okay, what does the committee think about that? Again, I see a lot of nodding. Kristen, is that
I'd agree with that. I was a little concerned that we haven't looked at our building permit fees since 2008. That's like 15-plus years ago, and needless to say, we've had a lot of major projects happening in the town of Chatham where multi-million-dollar homes are constructed. It just seems like we've lost out on some revenue. So I think having a review every few years makes sense for all of they're really user fees. I understand some people look at them as taxes, but when you're making use of resources, et cetera.
Anybody think that's a bad idea? Okay, thank you. Tracy, please.
I don't think that's a bad idea.
Thank you.
But if I may take a moment, just as a couple ideas were sort of converging, thinking of like a fee, I was also thinking in terms of like water and staffing, it'd be great if there was a position to do enforcement around the irrigation sort of thing and that piece. And then as we're getting some irrigation meters, shouldn't that be charged at a different rate? Or perhaps there should be fees, what? I'm sorry.
I think I know the water itself is charged at a different rate for the irrigation. Yep. Do you want me to, I can send you the rate structure, because I know it's funny, I've been recently looking at it for the water. So we have a winter rate, we have a summer rate, and then there's also different charges for people that, for the irrigation as well. Mm-hmm.
Andy, please.
But that's well and good. but my expectation is that not as many people have irrigation meters as should be required to have them under the current town reg. Right, there's an enforcement issue.
Trace?
So we should have some mechanism for finding people that are
Somehow,
not.
yes.
In general, I think, you know, I don't know whose purview that would be under, but if there were repeat offenders, perhaps they could be fined in some way.
You could probably do an analysis of water consumption data.
I mean, my impression is that DPW had, or the water department has, that information divided between irrigation meters and non-irrigation meters. But
Yeah, I think the problem is Athens, about 15 or 20 years ago, there was a large tax in Athens, Greece, on pools. And they had a pool registry of about 115 pools, and they started doing aerial surveys, and they found about 14,000 or some crazy number. So I think that's going to be one of the challenges, is having the self-declared irrigation system. Do we have a irrigation system control officer, or? I don't know. It's a good idea, but it's going to be, you know.
yeah, I mean, if water system capacity gets sharper and sharper, if the debate over that, then we may come to that point.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it would be easier to appropriately price the resource
Yes,
as a starting point,
right.
right? Which clearly we're not doing. Kristen, you look like you're about to hit the mic button. She's thinking.
Well, I mean, I think if, clearly there's, to some folks, to some of our residents or property owners, money is no object when it comes to, so I don't know from a revenue standpoint, it'll bring in some dollars. From a carrot to conserve water, probably not.
Yeah, good point. Andy?
I mean, to that point, though, some of the sites, potential well sites that we've looked at in the past, the issue has been, it's not just simply a well, it also requires a treatment plant for removing manganese and iron. Now, those are very expensive, but the cost could be offset by, you know, significantly higher irrigation water rates, amongst other things.
So, Joanne, please.
Yes, I like your idea of sending us what the rates are, what the charges are, and how they're divided between the drinking water and the sewer discharge and the irrigation for all of us, so we can take a look at the rates. Thank you.
Tracy?
Sometimes even if the financial hit of irrigation costing them more, whether it be a fine or a different rate, just the knowledge that, just the awareness of knowing, oh, this is, you know, even if somebody's like, oh, okay, well, I can just pay it, it might still make them hesitate before being as reckless with it. Perhaps even some sort of little budget to, you know, not an ad campaign, but some PR around this critical issue, because not everyone is aware of how close we come in the summer months, and perhaps there's a way to say, make it cool to not irrigate.
Get incentives for Cape Cod lawns. Jill, Carrie, any thoughts on the topic broadly? I mean, I think I'm getting an idea of how to formulate a statement on it, but I'd be curious to see what you guys think about all this.
Was curious mentioned, she and the DPW director are reviewing the water rates, the water and sewer too? The water rates, and so they were going to present it soon to the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee, who will then present it to the Select Board. So, you know, hearing the conversation, I mean, we have regulations that don't allow pools to be filled with town water, and that any new irrigation systems have to be on a separate meter. I think that was 2021, we had extended that enforcement. So just a good note to me to look at enforcement, and also look at, you know, maybe in the next 2 weeks have our communications manager, Shauna, start doing some outreach on cool not to fill your pool or whatever it is with town water, but certainly get people starting to think about that as well.
I like that idea. It's cool not to fill your pool.
Not to fill your pool with town water.
All right, that's helpful, thank you. So again, I think I've got some directionality, so. Kroll Road project, I think we all heard what Jill had to say a week or two ago. But I do think that reiterating, as I believe we have support for, reiterating the sense of the committee as being not in favor of this project, notwithstanding the fact that we're not yet at 25% design and that's all to come. I don't think it can hurt for us to reiterate our concern over what the implications of this project might mean for the gateway to our town. Any disagreement in that regard? Okay. Public safety recruitment, again, Jill made it very clear that it's kind of part of a broader conversation and a broader strategy. My sense is that the committee is of the belief that there are a few things less useful than unfilled police department positions. So I think just kind of a word of encouragement and trying to find a solution to enhancing the recruitment. As Jill pointed out, a couple of years ago, $7,500 was a terrific carrot and was quite successful. Unfortunately, it's so successful that all the other towns started offering it too. So yeah, the meter's been reset. So some comment about the topic. John, please.
I think that's right, and you might be able to point out as well, like apparently the town made an adjustment to the cost sharing on insurance, right? We went from 65 to 70 to be more competitive, to create a larger incentive. So in that vein, maybe looking at sign-on bonuses is another tool.
That's helpful, thank you. Hold the phone. Okay, Joanne. Oh, Tracy.
I was going to offer just some anecdotal information on that. I happen to know someone who's applying, and there are quite a few applicants for these positions. It sounded like 13 different applicants, and so it seems like there's something happening there.
Yeah, because the pool seemed to have dried up I remember the chief saying last year, I don't think it was this year, but last year, that, they used to get 30 submissions for, applications, and if they get 3 to 5 or 6, it's a big deal these days. So, transfer station, there's been conversation around, again, fee structures there, commercial tippers, commercial tipping. I asked Rob yesterday, Kristen, to the question you had raised about can commercial haulers from out of town tip at the facility. The short answer is they're asked not to bring trash from outside of Chatham, but there's no verification mechanism. Again, I was thinking broadly about, and the CMAS, I think you all probably may remember that the CMAS contract expired at the end of last year, and it was extended. I asked Rob yesterday about the status. It was extended. There's been about a 3 to 3.5% cost structure increase. I asked if that had been reflected in our rates, and the answer was no, not yet. So I guess I was sort of in the whole context of cost recovery, recommending that, again, the structure, not any specific, you should turn mattresses into $80, but just that these cost structures should be reviewed periodically and brought to market as necessary. Tracy?
Yes, I totally agree with that, especially if for some reason there's an incentive for commercial tippers to bring their garbage to Chatham. Is that because we're not keeping up pace with other transfer stations?
Yeah, I'm not sure we have enough data on that yet, but point taken. Short-term rental inspection fee we discussed, Chamber of Commerce. I think that Angela did a substantially better job than historically has been made to the committee, and I am appreciative of that, applaud that. I still keep coming back, and I know several, if not many of you do, to the fact that we provide more funding to the Chamber of Commerce than the members of the Chambers of Commerce provide to the Chamber of Commerce. There's just something that seems curious about that to me. I am frequently reminded when I bring up the idea of the Chamber of Commerce by people in the administration that keeping tourists out of 549 and asking for bathroom requests, or, where's the best place to get your poodle clipped on a Saturday, is not productive for town staff, which I completely applaud and appreciate. So I guess I was wondering how we feel about something we said last year, which was we would recommend funding $75,000 for the staffing of the chamber, but not the incremental $20,000 for marketing of the town. I have heard from a lot of people in town, as I know many of you have, that the quality of life in this town is being degraded by how many people are here in the summer. So that's kind of the only solution I can think of, was revisiting our recommendation from last year. And again, I see a lot of nodding heads, but want to just test that as a thesis. Andy?
Yeah, I support that, right? Because, it makes perfect sense in terms of town government for the info booth to be up and operating during the high season. It does, help out our staff, right, and the expenses for the town. The fact that the chamber hasn't increased its dues for a number of years and seems to be in a continual process of considering it it doesn't help.
Right. John, please.
Why not just match them dollar for dollar? Create an incentive.
Interesting idea.
Yeah, but is there a top side to that?
Capped at
Like
75,
off limit?
Sure, up to. But
up to 95.
we've had this conversation since I've been on the committee. And I'm sure it predates me.
So is that,
I was a little confused as well during the presentation. I was online for it, but at one point, I was led to believe that the merchants and the chamber combined into one entity. But then later on in the presentation discussion, it seemed like that's not true.
they're still carrying their own P&Ls.
So that was an issue. I actually was on the chamber board years ago and pushed hard for that for a variety of reasons. But I don't know, a match or a 2-for-1 up to a certain dollar amount.
I don't know how that would work, though, from a budgeting perspective, right? Because we have to set a budget and ascribe a number to it, and
Well, as I'm often reminded, the town can appropriate the funds, but it's not an obligation to have to expend them. So if and I know Angela, and she's doing a really great job, and she serves on both boards too, to try to work through that cohesion. So where was I going with this? I felt comfortable recommending the $95,000, including the $20,000 for what she terms or deems as economic development, because we all know we're saturated in the summer, but if we want to have a vibrant year-round community, we need to have offerings and events throughout the winter. So to keep people here or to, and also to help keep the businesses open longer. So, but what John suggests is interesting. I'd have to look back at Angela's P&L basically to see where they are. I'm not sure if you noticed, the Merchants Association P&L has them in the red for almost every event that they're doing. And so could there be something else to be done with that? I'm just not sure that I, as the town manager, would get into the nuance, but I know that it's top of mind for Angela to work out the fee structure to make sure that there's funds coming in. I mean, she gets paid a salary. I can't imagine it's 100% from the town grant that pays her salary. So there's some incentive for her to bring in either more members or possibly the board to increase the rates.
well, to Andy's point, and and one easy path to a remedy is increase the due structure, which has been static for, I think we understand, quite a number of years. Joanne, please.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I don't think I'm quite ready to reduce the town's, and from my point of view, contribution to the chamber. The chamber is very important to this town, and I think if we want to do that, I'm going to have a more convincing presentation of what the best solution would be for the town to reduce our contribution to an organization that provides so much enjoyment for all of us. It does bring tourists here, but those tourists are customers that help our local businesses survive. So I'm not quite ready to be a part of recommending that we don't fund them this year, the full 95,000.
Okay, I appreciate that. I think unfortunately there are 4 people to your right who are all nodding their heads at the idea of that. So Tracy's saying no.
No, and I question how much to chime in, but I agree with Joanne and sort of what Jill was saying, and I said it when Angela was here. But as a townsperson, I do feel like I understand that feeling of during the summer quality of life feeling diminished, but the stuff that the chamber does in the off season increases the quality of life of year-round living here.
Good point.
As just a person in town who likes to do some of the things that happen. I mean, I think a lot of people now have these cherished memories of Christmas in Chatham, and that didn't really used to be the case until that effort was put in.
So where do we land? Maybe a suggestion that we think about alternate ways of incentivizing more engagement or more monetary engagement through the chamber? Not necessarily, John?
Yeah, I mean, I think the chamber's under new leadership, and I think giving a message in our letter that we transmit that we're hopeful, based on the presentation we received this year, that things are starting to modernize, improve, change, that we'll put a careful eye to progress over this year and look forward to next year's presentation. But I mean, it comes down to the point you made, Mr. Chair, which is they haven't addressed their due structure in quite some time. And there's 2 ways to look at that. One is that the members don't feel they're getting enough for their membership.
Yep.
The other part is to look at it from the lens that it's an investment the town's making for all the townsfolk beyond the members. So I think that's sort of the tension right there. And
Yeah.
given the fact that we have a new executive director there who's basically been in just a little over a year, if I understand it properly, I think we should give her some more time to implement what she pitched to the committee the other day.
Okay. I think I have enough directionality. Thank you. Second to lastly, Joanne raised the point of grinder pumps. And I don't know, I support Joanne's point, which is sort of making a stand on it, but I'm hesitant because we've not had a direct presentation on grinder pumps in the history, economics, et cetera. Clearly, the Select Board of the Summer Residents Summer Residents have made its recommendation to the Select Board and the Water and Sewer Commissioners, but I just don't feel as though we, right now, don't really have a lot of standing and due diligence on which to make a claim. So, but I wanted to acknowledge the point because I thought it was a good one.
Yeah, I agree with that, Mr. Chairman. I was just letting you know what I think in the future, my philosophy is that that's going to have to be addressed. But right now, I agree, we're not in a position to really make a recommendation.
Ideally and hopefully, this will be all addressed and agreed upon well before we're sitting here next year trying to figure out what to write to the Select Board.
Fine.
In an ideal world. Andy, you look pensive.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what maybe we've left out. And certainly in previous years, we have emphasized greatly the necessity of having an ample, clean, potable supply of water. And, other than talking about water rates and irrigation systems, we aren't really talking about that anymore. Is it possible that there are some things that coming down the pike that we need to prepare the public for?
What are you thinking?
I'm thinking standpipe treatment systems for either PFAS or manganese. That's certainly one of them.
The unknown unknowns.
Huh?
The unknown unknowns.
Well, yeah, I don't want
kind of vaguely known?
I really hated that guy, so let's not go there. Yeah, just, you know, the idea that you know,
2
we've
minutes, we'll be
emphasized
done
it so much
momentarily.
in the recent past, and, you know, we're kind of not emphasizing it in this transmittal.
Yeah, I had intended to put some context around the whole water thing.
Okay.
So I can reiterate our concerns around, you know, ample potable quality, et cetera.
Right, okay.
Okay, and then lastly, I was going to applaud, I'm going to applaud a number of things that Jill and her team are doing, but especially the initiative to upgrade the financial management system, based on very informal conversations I've had with our last couple of finance directors. I think it's well due and should be broadly supported. So, Tracy.
I thought it was also really great, what he was saying about being able to see sort of in real time as expenditures are made on larger capital projects, so that the townspeople could feel a little more engaged with, oh, right, we approved that money, but it's actually doing something.
Right, and I know that's been a concern of Barbara's, that we kind of approve these projects and they, like the Elders Library, I think may be top of mind for Barbara, but that they get approved at town meeting 2 or 3 years ago and not much visibly seems to be going down, so I agree that could be helpful. Andy?
And obviously, ClearGov is an approach, and probably an approach that more and more people will begin to adopt. But then there are others who don't and have never looked at it.
Right.
Right? And how do we get the word to them about the progress on projects that are undergoing? I mean, somehow we got to make sure.
Well, I think the main sheet's part of that solution.
Yeah, of course.
Carrie likes that idea?
Carrie likes that idea. And internally, Sean is working with each department head on creating not only just a web platform, but something else that someone doesn't have to be on social media to get the update. So that's a work in progress.
How many paid subscribers do you have to the main sheet?
Paid?
No, it's free. I think it's over 1,200, and she has like a 70% plus opening rate, which is pretty significant
terrific.
in our world of a ton of distractions with social media.
But that's good.
Okay, missing anything? Other than a motion to adjourn? Okay. Seconded? Okay, thanks, Tracy. Tommy Doan, is Tommy still with us? He may not be. Barb Madison?
Yes,
John
approve.
Papalardo?
Yes.
Joanne Sprague?
Yes.
Andy Young? Kristen Andres?
Yes.
Tracy Shields?
Yep.
Eric Whiteley?
Yes.
And the chair's in favor. Okay, thank you guys very much. It's very helpful. I'll get out of the weeds and try to write.